Okay, I got 5:15. Call the Planning and Budget meeting for February 2nd to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Anderson,
Present.
Delgado,
Present.
Wong.
Here.
All members are present with Wong in the boardroom.
Can we have an approval of the agenda?
So move.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carried. I was noticing the approval of the minutes. The minutes were not on there, were they? Did I miss them? Okay. All right. Did we want to move to postpone them to the next meeting for approval? Or, unless everyone looked them up, were they out there before? No. Okay.
I move to postpone them because they were not there. I didn't see them.
I'll second.
Okay. A motion to postpone the minutes from today's or from last meeting to next meeting. All those signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. So we have the first item is going to be on the item 2A, which is going to be the new course proposals. And we have Ms. Peltz and I think a number of other people that are going to be presenting. So I'm not sure who's going to take the floor first, but take it away.
Okay, I can go ahead and start. Thank you for having us. We are proposing a number of courses tonight. And so, I could also ask, what do you think the best way to go about is this? I do have a presenter for each of the courses with me in attendance this evening to talk about each of the courses and to answer any questions. So would you like me just to have each course separately discussed and then ask questions?
Yes, I think that would be the best way to go. And if we can just go with in the order that they are on the board docs.
Okay, absolutely. So the first course we will be discussing is Mathematical Models and Applications Proposal, which is with Mr. Davis.
Hi, everyone. What we're proposing for the mathematical modeling course is a course, third-year course in mathematics at the high school that students can receive a high school credit for, and that credit does count toward graduation. However, it is not the same as our current third-year Algebra 2 course. It runs slightly different in that it looks more at the application of mathematics and the modeling of the real world using mathematics. So some of the concepts will be the same as what they are in Algebra 2, but looked at in a different perspective, more of a modeling perspective than the straight theory that we look at when we're looking at Algebra 2.
Do we have any?
And I'm not sure what else to add to that.
Go ahead.
I said I'm not sure what else to add to that. I just would,
Nope.
I could entertain any questions that anybody would have.
There was plenty of information in the packet as well describing this course. So are there any questions from board members or from committee members? Okay. Hearing none, I guess we're ready for the next proposal, which is that the
Yep, the
Numeracy.
Numeracy Intervention Program.
Okay. Yep.
And that actually consists of a couple different courses: numeracy 1, selected numeracy 2, targeted numeracy 1, and targeted numeracy 2. This course will be offered through our instructional coaching department. Unfortunately, our instructional coach who was going to present on it tonight could not be with us. So Kelly, I know I see you on the call. I don't know if you want to go over this.
Happy. Yep, I'm happy to take over.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So this is a series of 4 courses, as Ms. Powell mentioned. They follow the same framework, so they're presented together. And really what this proposal does is help bring math intervention at the high school in line with what we do for literacy intervention at the high school. The 4 courses really are determined in part by the level of achievement gap that a student might have against grade level and their grade level position. So numeracy 1 is for 9th graders who are needing skill sets to go successfully into algebra. Targeted numeracy 1 would be for 9th grade students that are in need of some support in some more foundational skills. So in skills like understanding different ways to represent numbers or operational thinking, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, those kinds of skills. The selected numeracy 2 and targeted numeracy 2 follow the same pattern, but they're really for 10th and 11th grade students primarily. And really, the curricula that we have decided is for these 2 courses are curricular materials that have been used within the district before. So we know them, and we know that they work with some efficacy. And we do actually use some of these materials at BLA as well. We do have some supporting materials for these courses as well picked out, and those again are things that we have tried in the past. We do have progress monitoring tools in place for the targeted numeracy courses. District-wide, we're looking at what we would call Tier 2 progress monitoring tools. So as we bring in a tool, we will bring in that same tool for the high school as well. So that to be determined is really at a district level. That's not information that the high school left out. And then I think from there you can probably see we've added some information on assessment and standards, but really this is to help bring the math intervention structures at the high school in line with some of the other structures that we use successfully within the district, and in particular with the literatures at the high school.
Okay. Are there any questions from committee members? Board Member Delgado, I know you had a question. I don't know if that was from the previous presentation.
Yeah, that was from the previous. I just wanted to know if the mathematical model, would that take the place of Algebra 2, or is that something that would be a choice to take?
That class would not take the place of Algebra 2. It would be a choice that a student could take during their 3rd year. The prerequisites for that course would be algebra and geometry. So a student could take that theoretically in their 3rd year. So it would run parallel to Algebra 2 right now, but it would not take the place of it.
Okay, so just for my understanding, it would be like a subject that would kind of be the same, but just with a different like learning experience. Is that kind of what it would be?
Yeah, it would be, we would take some of our topics from Algebra 2, we would take some of our topics that we currently teach in geometry, and we would look at them more from an application and modeling point of view than just a straight theoretical mathematical point of view. For example, we would do more with data structures and data analysis than what we normally do in an Algebra 2 course or a geometry course. So we would look at practical applications and real life modeling situations much more than what we would do in an Algebra 2 course.
Okay, is it targeted for any specific group of people like that have some type of different like learning styles, or is there like any type of target?
No, there's no type of target. It was just we wanted to give students another alternative besides Algebra 2 in order to meet the 3 credits of mathematics, but also keeping the rigor at a level so it wasn't a watered down course for their 3rd year. So it would kind of still bridge the gap to some post-secondary because it has applications that students would see in a post-secondary situation, but it's not for a student that is headed into a particular math or science related field if they were going post-secondary route. But as far as a learning style, no, there's no learning style that it's more geared toward.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask my question for the second presenter?
Go right ahead.
Okay, is the course the numeracy intervention, does that have any type of, like, are they getting any type of credits for taking that course, or is it just like an assistance to get them up to the level to take math?
That's an excellent question. This does have each course would have a half credit associated with it. And one of the reasons why we're making this proposal is because we know from the literacy intervention courses that do carry credit, students do take the intervention more seriously when they're earning credit for the class, right? And so this will allow students to get something for their time and really take it seriously.
So it would kind of be considered like an elective for them. Right. And I really like the literacy intervention one. It's very, very helpful for those students that, are not in the level that they need to be as far as their reading and their writing. So, yeah, thank you for that. So thank you for your answer.
No problem. Thanks for the question.
Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions?
No, I don't, but the question I do have is, I can ask it at the end of the presentations.
Okay. I do have one question. The assessment, so this is for high school students, so students that are coming in that are behind in the 9th grade. Is the assessment done in the prior year, or is it just as they come into the school year? How is that handled?
So generally, I'm going to speak generally speaking, because this year is a little different with all of our disruptions to MAP. But generally speaking, when we're looking at students for intervention, we look over a period of time at their MAP scores, but we also look at some other things as well, some other data points as well. So our screener would be MAP, and generally what we would do is we would look at what's listed here on the course, below 25th percentile or below 7th percentile, and then with that subset of students, then we go a little bit deeper to assess their actual skill level before we would place them into an actual intervention course.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no more questions, we can move on to the next presentation, which would be the advanced ceramic proposal.
And actually, the next 3 proposals are a series of courses out of the art department.
Sure.
And so I have Liz Carpenter here, and she can speak to those. And I think Michelle Depraz is here too.
So I'll start with ceramics. We're trying to get our classes to be more sort of hierarchical and scaffolded to move the students up. So we have a very popular ceramics course, and we have enough to feed into another level of advanced ceramics. So it'll be on the wheel and doing projects, more conceptual. So we're just kind of offering more to those students. Do you want me to just move on to the next ones? Any questions about ceramics?
No, why don't you just go through all of them, and then we'll come back in the end if there's additional questions for this, if there's specific questions.
And then for photography, we're trying to build the pathway that we have towards digital art, and photography has been offered in the past through the tech ed department. It's very popular. I have a lot of requests from students, asking for this course. We can folded into media journalism, which is also taught at the high school, doing like photojournalism, and provide, things for yearbook as well as other sort of promotional photography for the district, and then teaching the fundamentals of photography. So we've been looking at photographer for a while, and it's also a great feed to AP. There's a lot of AP photography portfolios out there. So, and then the other one, the applied arts, what we're doing is we're kind of getting rid of metals and glass and fiber arts and printmaking. And then we're trying, instead of having all these sort of courses where they're able to sample in a specific medium, we want to build something where they can take applied arts and kind of work within those materials, and then advanced applied arts so they can go a little bit further. So it's not just the sort of one sampling of the materials and then not being able to kind of proceed or go anywhere farther with that. And again, we're thinking of the pathways, because we do have a pathway in applied arts as well as fine arts. So we're trying to build that. And then we're also tying that in with a global studies certificate. So we're going to, base it on sort of a cultural literacy unit. So they'll be looking at other cultures for their art inspiration. So Michelle is kind of more or less doing the applied art. So I don't know if you have anything to add.
I just, taking the advanced applied arts, I think, gives more of an opportunity for kids to explore much deeper and much more focused in their chosen mediums, and by giving them prompts and problem solving. So it'd be a lot more rigorous for them.
Yeah, right now the courses we have, like metals and glass, is just so material specific and so expensive. It's very popular. Like everybody loves metals and glass and fiber arts, and so they'll have the same sort of projects and be able to explore those, but they can do, through different kinds of designs.
But they're not limited to those either. They can think outside the box more.
Are there any questions?
I think that.
Are there any questions from committee members?
I do have a question.
Go ahead.
Will there be any additional teachers added to any of these courses?
Yes, and we already got one.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we're up a teacher this year. So our numbers have been so high at the high school. We're really building the department. We're very happy with that pre-COVID. But yeah, so that we're able to explore. In a way, we're sort of reducing the courses, although it sounds like we're proposing more, but and kind of streamlining it. But no, in the future, we won't need a fifth one unless we want to get to it.
So you mentioned that you're cutting some courses down in order to offer this new ones. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Sorry, I'm kind of in the dark.
Okay.
Yeah, the metals and glass we're no longer offering, and fiber arts we're no longer offering. But again, still those units will be folded into the applied arts, but just it will be more open, and there'll be other materials involved than just metals and glass.
So the students will still be introduced to those mediums, but then in their second year they can take it a bit further. So let's say that they love printmaking, and so if you give them a prompt that they need to problem solve, they could choose, the materials that they want to explore further. So they have more choices in exploring a certain medium of their choice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like teaching artistic behaviors rather than, offering canned kind of lessons.
Board Member Anderson, do you have any questions?
The only question I had was when I was looking at these courses, I tried clicking on the link to see the camera that you guys are going to be using for photography, just out of my own personal curiosity. But I was going to ask if there's any way that you guys could possibly send me the link, because I wanted to be able to look at it and see what kind of equipment you guys are getting for it.
Certainly, and we're not married to that. We're, photography, technology changes. I'm sure where there's already something better that's probably a more reasonable price than what we originally proposed. So, but yeah, I'll definitely send you that link. Any suggestions?
Thank you very much.
Sure.
No, I mean, I don't do I'm not very professional when it comes to photography, so just out of my own curiosity, I just wanted to look into it.
Okay.
I did have a question regarding the cameras. Just, I'm assuming there's going to be protective cases for them, and the kids are going to be able to take them out of the building. And I believe that was in the proposal. And then, as you had mentioned, over time, I'm assuming those will have to be replaced and upgraded as well. Are those accurate statements?
Yeah, we're hoping to buy something that will, last a while. And a good majority of the photography can be done with the even the iPads and the cameras they have. But we do want to have units where they are exposed to manipulating like f-stops and some of the mechanics of digital photography. So it's not like each student will get a camera. We're gonna they'll be sparingly passed out. But yes, we'll perhaps down the line need to replace them. Hopefully we can find a grant or something for that.
And then also you had mentioned that the metals and glass class was quite popular. This one, do you think the applied one will cover enough to keep the same level of excitement up in that area?
Oh yeah, if not more so. So I definitely think there'll be more of a broader look, and I think it'll be very popular. We've already surveyed students, and they're very interested.
There also won't be a prerequisite to the applied arts, so they won't have to take 2D or 3D art. They'll learn the fundamentals of art within that class as well. So it kind of opens it up to even more students.
Okay. Any other questions from board members? If not, then let's move on to Jazz 3, and then we have Latino Studies.
All right. Well, I think this is a pretty simple one. We are asking to add an additional jazz ensemble to our already 2 ensembles that exist in our program. And this is mainly just due to overwhelming interest at the middle school level. We started a summer jazz camp a couple of summers ago, and because of that, we've had just huge numbers. And this would simply just add another ensemble for our entry-level, less experienced players, and it'll basically follow the same thing we're doing with our other 2 ensembles. So it's just another level. Another way to get more students involved in the jazz program.
Any questions from board members or committee members? I did have one for you, Mr. Behrens. With COVID this last year, have you seen significant changes with the students as far as in the classes, participation? How was that conducted with it being virtual?
It is very difficult. It's no surprise. I mean, students sign up for playing in band and music and orchestra and choir for many reasons. A lot of them sometimes social, and without the interaction and getting together every day and being part of a group that makes music, it's definitely hard. So we've had to certainly change the way we look at how we present, music education, and look at some different ways to do it. And we're doing our best, but we are excited that with the extracurriculars being able to start up and hopefully getting together at least once a week, that we'll be able to kind of re-energize everything.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, the last topic is going to be the Latino Studies.
Hello, my name is Mark Grunsky. I am, among other things, a social studies coordinator in the district. And I'm very excited to, on the behalf of the social studies department, to bring forth this proposal. A couple of years ago, as they've told me, because I was not here at the time, a couple of years ago, we had African American Studies as a two-semester course. And the department at that time asked and inquired about reducing that to one semester and creating a Latino Studies course in its place. Unfortunately, the course never got written. And so we are writing that course currently and ready to roll it out for next year. It's really, it's unanimous within the department. We're excited to bring it to our students. It kind of rounds out a collection of courses we have, including African American Studies and Women's Studies. So in terms of allowing our students to see themselves in our curriculum and learn more about who they are and their history and their cultures, that's what the course is going to do. And just we're thrilled to finally get it on the books, pending, of course, your approval.
Okay. Any committee members have questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say this is super awesome. I love the proposal. I think with the high numbers of Latino in the school district, I think this is just going to be great. And I'll say it, for my own personal benefit. I think it's a great way to expose, our children that are Latino that have not had the experience of, the Latin America culture and history. So it's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we're very excited. We, in order to make sure that we did right by this course, we've reached out to some professors, and we've actually been working with the Latino Studies and History professor at UWM and Marquette, and they've donated thus far their time to us, kind of walking us through what we need to consider as we build the course, providing resources and thoughts as to, where to go looking for resources and different things like that. So we're trying to be really authentic and reaching out to the experts in the field so that we do it right from top to bottom for not only our staff, but our students and the community as a whole.
Committee member Anderson, do you have any comments or questions?
My comment is going to reflect the same as Maria's. I'm really happy to see this course being looked at and possibly added to our schools.
Great. I would echo that as well. I think that with 1/3 of our students being of Hispanic descent, I think it's critical that we include them and provide that history for them to understand their ethnic backgrounds. So thank you so much for bringing that forth. Okay.
Thank you for letting me.
Okay. With all that being said, we now have, does anyone care to entertain a motion unless we have additional questions regarding any of the classes that the courses, recommended courses?
I have an additional question.
Go right ahead.
All right. So my question is Mrs. Carpenter has kind of hinted at some of the classes that they're replacing these with. So are there any other classes that we are kind of replacing them for these new ones?
Nope. None of these other classes are replacing courses at this time.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Can I make a motion?
Go right ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to move forward the new courses for full board approval.
I will second that.
For 2022 school year.
And there's a second on that? Committee member Anderson, is that a second?
Second.
Okay. All right. Any other additional questions or comments? Hearing none. All those in favor to move approval to recommend to the full Board of Education the addition of digital photography, applied arts, advanced ceramics, jazz band 3, Latino Studies, numeracy intervention, and mathematical models with applications course continuing our courses beginning in the 2021-2022 school year, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. As we move on to the next item, I want to, first of all, I apologize, and I did not introduce Board Member Delgado as the new member of the Planning and Budget Committee. With the restructuring of the officers, Ms. Miller, Board Member Miller she pulled herself off of that, and just to concentrate more on governance. So thank you, Board Member Delgado, for stepping up and being part of the group. Hopefully, I'm confident you will be able to provide a lot of good information and feedback. So also, I want to let people know that if I struggle with reading tonight, it's because I haven't got my reading glasses and I'm barely seeing anything on the board here. So I'm struggling with that. The next topic, though, is going to be the financial review and preliminary projections for December of 2020. Ms. Armstrong is going to be presenting along with Ms. LaPointe, I believe.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I first wanted to apologize for this presentation not being available on board docs prior to the meeting. We will be sharing it on the board docs after the presentation. When we are starting to talk about projections and we get to that portion in the presentation, those projections changed even through the weekend. So I have been trying to get that as up to date as possible for you for the moving forward. So Ms. LaPointe, who is our Director of Finance, is going to go over the review side and I will take the rest of the presentation from, sorry, lost my voice, from the projection standpoint. So I will be presenting for her moving through that presentation.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to be looking at the mid-year projection. So all these numbers are as of December 2020. The big takeaway on this screen is really the overall percentages are trending very closely this year as compared to last year at 34.98 as compared to 34.85. So that's really only a difference of 0.13. And if we go to the next slide, you'll have a easier time looking at those numbers. Overall, very similar, except for the other and the financing pieces. So the differences in those are attributed to, in the other category, there was an E-rate reimbursement in 1920. And in 2021, we had to book an Apple lease, which is really just a journal entry. You book the overall expenses and revenues. It's an in and out. But that accounts for those major differences in those two categories. Okay, next slide. Okay, so these are the expenditures. Again, these do not include any grants. This is just district funds. And the overall percentages, comparing years, we are down this year about 1.77%. The buildings have been very conservative with their virtual learning this year. And if we return to in-person instruction, we may see some of that change slightly. Again, very similar in trends by service. Each of these categories there's only a difference of about 1% or 2% overall. So very similar to last year.
Ms. LaPointe, would you want us to ask questions as we go along here versus waiting until
Sure,
the end?
go ahead.
Okay. Committee Member Delgado, you had a question?
I was just actually wondering if the presentation could be made just a little bit bigger. I'm having a really hard time. I just put my glasses on, so it looks a little bit better, but yeah.
And I apologize, I can't see you guys, and it's like taking my whole screen, so I don't know how to make it bigger and be able to let you see it.
That's okay. If you're going to be putting it up, we can probably take a look at it once it's up.
Absolutely, and I will forward it to you as well through email so that you have it that way as well.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, you can go to the next slide. We wanted to touch on the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Fund, otherwise known as CARES. That is broken into two categories. We have the Elementary and Secondary Emergency Relief, or ESSER funds, and we have the Governor's Emergency Education Relief, or GEARS funds. The ESSER funds are based on, the eligibility is based on Title I, and for the GEARS funds, there are 4 factors. Those include percentage of students scoring below basic on English language arts, percentage of students from economically disadvantaged families, percentage of households with no devices, and percentage of households with no internet. And that information, household internet and devices data, are from the American Community Survey. Total allocation in these categories in round 1 was $3,203,537. Part of that is reserved for private schools, and that was about $73,369. There's no requirements on supplement, not supplant, attached to either of these funding allocations. And then the allowable costs for the ESSER funds fall into several areas. There's preparedness and response to COVID-19, addressing long-term school closure, educational technology, outreach and service to special populations, addressing after-school and summer learning, mental health services and supports, and continued staff employment. So this is part of that commitment that we made to continue paying staff when we closed down in the spring, and we continue to pay our staff. And then as far as the GEARS allowable costs, that included health and safety, infrastructure and scheduling modifications, and remote and distance learning.
Ms. LaPointe, are those funds, have those funds already been received, or are they going to be received in the future? And then also, is it a matter of reporting that we've used it for the various expenses that you've indicated there?
Yes, so we are in the process of claiming those funds, and I think it's the next slide where we'll talk about what we've spent so far. But yes, we've used it all up.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, here's where we talk about the expenses. So the main categories here, I tried to break these up. Supplies and signage, we've spent about $5,700. That includes floor decals, tape, and posters for spacing, bags for student supplies. Instructional software, we spent about $24,000, and that included the Nearpod K-12 lesson library. For disinfecting supplies and equipment, we've spent over $102,000, and that included disinfectant, hand sanitizer, and dispensers, touchless door handles, and 360 machines. And the PPE, we spent over $141,000 so far, and that included masks, gloves, face shields, gowns, desk dividers, plexiglass, thermometers, and those kinds of supplies. Okay. Also, we've spent in devices, we separated that out because that amount was so large, it would have skewed the other categories. But we spent $559,608 in staff devices and $2,148,136 in student devices. The total allocation of $3,203,357. so far we've spent $3,054,976, and that leaves $148,561, which is earmarked for additional instructional software and supplies, which has been spent but not booked as of December 2020, which these numbers are based on.
I do have one question regarding that. I know that we have the device refresh that we had. The device refresh would have occurred regardless of whether these funds came in, correct?
Joanne, do you want to address that?
Yes. Yes, they would have occurred, and what we were facing with a $3 million deficit budget is our problems with trying to finance those device refreshes. This provided an opportunity that we could update all of our devices and not incur additional debt with the district to be able to get those devices immediately into our students and our staff hands. We were concerned at looking at a phased device refresh and having to limp along those iPads that were 6 and 7 years old. So this truly did come at an opportune time to allow that technology to be incorporated, and also adding the staff devices includes the simulcasting equipment that we have provided to the classrooms for that instructional component in a concurrent learning environment, as well as student devices. We did the device refresh for the $1.9 million that was approved by the board, but this is also additional iPads and other Chromebooks that had been ordered previously in the spring. These expenses go from March of 2020 until now.
Committee Member Delgado.
Okay, are we foreseeing any additional expenses from here on? And how are those going to be covered if we have already pretty much used up all the funds that we had from those two funds, from the DEER and the ESSER?
Yep, and that will be part of my presentation on the projections of what we can anticipate once Ms. LaPointe finishes this section.
Okay, thank you. I'll hold on then.
Yep.
I think, that was my last slide, so unless there's any other questions on that piece.
Well, I guess it's my turn.
That was the perfect transition.
Perfect transition. So this is a very early time to be looking at the projections. So typically in my world of the finance and business and projections and staffing, we start this process late February, beginning of March. So these are truly very, very preliminary. And as I indicated, a lot of it has changed just even over weekends. So just keeping that in mind. Right now, these are the enrollment trends that we have seen over time. And as you can see, we had growing enrollment from 2010 through 2015. We had our highest enrollment in the 14-15 year with 7,372 students. Since fall of 2015, we have continuously experienced that declining enrollment. This past fall, we reported an enrollment of 6,412. So with student achievement falling below state average and instability in the district administration and the board, a national pandemic, and the opening of new public charter school, our very early projections are trending towards another year of declining enrollment. So when I am basing decisions and looking at our financial impact, we want to consider the fact of those issues that we have faced this year and in prior years in looking at that declining enrollment. So I am projecting that we would drop our enrollment at this point, possibly another 300 students, putting us, I'm estimating about 6,100. I hope that that is not the case. As I said, this is really preliminary, but we've already seen trends continue to change. But as we're striving as the board and the administration to address the consistency in leadership and promoting the professional development and instructional initiatives based on the evidence-based activities, I think we're going to be able to turn that declining enrollment around. We need to be pushing both ourselves and our students to excellence and encourage and expect higher expectations. I think returning to our students in-person instruction, supporting their social and academic and social emotional needs are vital to this mission. Just as a reminder, the reason that declining enrollment is such a prevalent area for my focusing on projections is that enrollment is basing the revenue limits that we have as a district. Wisconsin has a funding formula in which you have a set revenue limit of what you can expect to receive in revenue, and that is received for us from federal, state, and local, which are your property taxes. So understanding that we have our resident membership, that is going to be our students that we have enrolled, that we receive a per pupil amount. This year, that per pupil amount is $10,031. We do get some non-reoccurring exemptions, which are for declining enrollment and hold harmless for making sure that we get as much money. The hold harmless is we cannot get less than what we received in prior year. So it can stay stagnant, but you cannot receive less, and that is to try to help stabilize staffing so that you're not reducing and pulling and laying off staff just on whims. It is a 3-year rolling average of our enrollment, and as we've seen more significant decrease over the last 3 years, that limit is now getting into those lower reoccurring years. We don't have the high enrollment years any longer on our books. So once the revenue limit is determined, then we are looking at the equalization aid that determines who's paying what portion. And the equalized property value, we have continued to see rise in Beloit, which is a wonderful thing. It means our properties are going up in value. But when that rate goes up, it also affects your state funding into what can become the taxpayer's responsibility versus the aiding from our equalization aid. So we want to see that increase in property values to attract people and families to our area, but we as a district need to recognize there is some offset to that in where our funding is coming from. When we're planning for the 21-22 school year, we will be using the last 3 pupil counts, which would be our September of 2019, the September counts from this year of 2020, and then our September 2021 and summer school counts. So we have to project those counts out to be able to look at what we are anticipating in the new year. We will not get this finalized until October of 2021, but we get better ideas of what we're projecting. So as you can see, there are a lot of moving targets in this process of what we need to look at.
Ms. Armstrong?
Yes.
Question on the property values. You had brought that up, and I know that that's a key component for the formulas that are used. And while the property values in Beloit have gone up, I'm assuming that we're not the only community in the United States or in the state of Wisconsin that has seen rising property values throughout this period of time. I know historically Beloit has been in the bottom 5, if I'm not mistaken, of communities in the state when it comes to that level. Has that number changed at all, do you know?
No, it has not. And we continue to be one of the most highly aided districts in the state of Wisconsin because of our economic climate here in Wisconsin. So our property values, though they are increasing, are still substantially lower than other areas within Wisconsin.
So even if we see the property values increasing here, does that still play the same negative effect as you had mentioned because the values are going up in regards to the state funding? Because I guess I would think that the state funding is going to be based upon, I guess the poorest districts are going to receive the most as we have in the past. Would that change just because our values have gone up and everyone else's have as well?
No, it would not change. However, what we are hearing are there are many communities that have not experienced growth in their property values because of people leaving the state from the pandemic and those types of concerns of people leaving for education purposes, for jobs. I think that we are more on the unique side, that we have the increasing continued, we had an 8.2% growth, and that was almost unheard of in most of the communities in Wisconsin last year. So that is the only reason I bring that concern up. I don't necessarily expect that will impact us this year, but it could potentially be impacting us in the coming years as we project forward.
When you say an 8.1% growth, is that in population or in values of properties?
The values of property.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so as Board Member Delgado had mentioned, we are looking at the new funding that was signed into law December 27th. That granted over $1 trillion of additional COVID relief funds. At this point, the ESSER 2 funds, as they're being called, are to be used for, again, the coordination and preparedness for COVID response, addressing learning loss through assessments and evidence-based activities, parent engagement, attendance tracking, and improving the student engagement as well. School facilities, repairs, and improvements to reduce virus transmission exposure. That would include HVAC, ventilation system upgrades, and other facility-based, if you needed to look at air conditioning, the way that the age of our boilers and our systems, those would be included, as well as any other activities to maintain the operation and continuity of service to our students and our community. Right now, School District of Beloit's estimated allocation based on Title I funding would be $8.4 million. And that is a huge amount of money. And in many districts across Wisconsin, they are really struggling with what they're going to do with this funding. Some of them feel they have no idea what they will expend this on. I think that we have a very unique opportunity to really look at what we can do with this money and how we can get into the SEL needs, to get into our students and increasing that achievement. What we want to be cautious of with this money is looking at things that carry reoccurring price tags, because once this comes, it doesn't reoccur. So, if we truly wanted to look at opportunities for new learning systems, new facility improvements, those are things that we really will take this opportunity to look at. And I think the exec team in coordination, we're going to start working on some of those ideas. It's hard to plan when you don't know exactly what you're going to get, but this would be a substantial influx of money for the district. So we want to be able to get the biggest bang for our buck. Similarly to being able to refresh those devices that we were able to do, this gives us some opportunities to do things that we just have not had the opportunity to do and make sure that we get that impact from it. The nice thing about these funds is that you would be able to use these funds through September 30, 2023. So it isn't a cutoff of 2021. You would have these to do some strategic planning. The other side of it is other districts are getting money as well. So you have to be cognizant of making sure you get your orders and your ideas together so that you don't have a rush on items that you want to do, much like we've experienced with devices. Everybody wanted to do that, and now we're at 6 months of wait times for Chromebooks. So this is very preliminary. This is what I was working on this weekend and trying to get all the information together because I knew it would be a topic that we would want to hear some more about. So this will be a continued update through this process.
Board Member Delgado.
Are these funds going to be received like all at once, or are they like scheduled, in payments, or how is that?
Yep. The way that grants work, and the same way that ESSER and GEARS Fund, is once we expend the money, we get reimbursement for it. So you file your claims that you have purchased the service, and then you will get those funds back from the government on that reimbursement claim.
So you need to have like all the expenditures like done and over before you can actually get the money?
There are provisions where we encumber it and offer a purchase order, and we actually engage in the services. We can claim those as well, knowing once they're received and we have commitment for it.
Okay, can those expenses be made like in portions? Like say for instance, before the end of the year, you spend maybe $2 million. Can you submit that to get that refunded and then submit again, or how does that work?
Yes, we file our grant claims at a minimum every month. So, whatever we spend, we're getting that money back because we don't honestly have cash flow to be able to upfront all this money. So as we continue to go through the process, much like for the student devices that we did with the refresh that we're using that ESSER and GEARS funds for, we have put into place because of cash flow. We will be doing a finance agreement to make sure that if we don't have the reimbursement, we have someone, American Capital, working with us to cover that first payment to them for the devices if they come in before we get that reimbursement. But yes, we will be claiming as soon as we spend, and we do that with all our grants.
Okay. Another question. The plan that is set for staff members in case they get COVID, or if they have to be out because of COVID, quarantine or whatever, does that plan, like the funds that are attached to that plan, are they able to come from this new funding?
That does fall under the continuity of services, and under the ESSER funds that Ms. LaPointe talked about, it specifically indicated the continuation of employment. So we will have, and always have at this point, had benefits to staff that was not necessarily being taken from their personal time, benefit time. Under the FFCRA rules and things, there were a lot of parameters that had to be met. We have offered some flexibility, and we continue to discuss that as a process. But if this second round of funding comes in, it will provide us some more opportunities to look at our practices and what we want to move forward. But I don't want to guarantee that is how we're going to go. It will be a lot of conversations on that.
Okay, thank you. One last question that might not be totally relevant to the discussion, but in some way it is. So with the projection that we're going to be losing some students, do we have like a plan established, or are we starting to have conversations about how are we going to be promoting our school? What are we going to be doing to, start gaining more students, or, just promoting, the school so that we don't lose,
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And that is a great question. And that is something that we have been tackling. Monica Christopov, our Chief of Communications and Marketing, has developed a plan on highlighting a lot of the opportunities that we offer that are unique to the Beloit School District and not being offered at other places. The high school's done an amazing job working on Fort NGL and getting those types of things moving in our district. So the promotion and marketing of our district and showing the benefits is at one of the top of our list in making sure that we get that. This is open enrollment time. That's another reason that makes some of these projections a little more difficult, as people are now taking that option to open enroll for the entire month of February into other districts or into Beloit. And we really want to make sure that we're marketing why you want to be in Beloit and try to get people to open enroll into Beloit and stop the trend of open enrollment out. That is a long-term problem or challenge that we face. And I think that as we start developing that consistency and working through all of the aspects of our curriculum and our families, communities, I think we will turn that trend around.
Hey, Joanne, I'll jump in there as well and say, Board Member Delgado, that we have a lot of things that are already working. I know that we had a presentation on the high school academy model, and I'm happy to say that we are in the midst of formulating a community action team that is going to help do the profile of the graduate. And I know that that work and the fruits of that labor with a 50-person community board that incorporates both district staff as well as families and the community will result in a lot of conversations out in the community, which, again, this is a long-term strategy. We can present out about all the things we currently are doing, like highlighting the number of students that we have taking AP and college level courses through our Start College Now and Earn College Credit options. We can talk about all the industry certifications our students have earned as a result of partnering in our CTE courses, our youth apprenticeships, and as well as partnering with Blackhawk Technical College. So there's plenty that we are communicating out, and I look forward to taking all of those pieces and putting them in the springtime under a strategic plan that will provide us a long-term strategy to highlight not only the things that we're doing and me just mentioning at the high school, but at the intermediate and elementary school as well, to talk about all of the successes we do have, because I think in education, one of the things we fall short on is we don't toot our own horn nearly enough around all the successes we do have, and that's something we want to change moving forward.
Thank you. And I do think that that would be a great agenda item, in one of the committees or even this one, only because the meetings are all, projected over YouTube and other communities, other people, it's a great way to promote so that people can learn exactly what we're all about. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'll move on to...
I did have one question. The $8.4 million that we're projected to receive, first of all, this is over and above the $2.2 million on the ESSER funds that we've already received, correct?
That is correct.
And so it's probably fair to say that over the course of the next few months, we're going to see a number of different proposals coming forward to this committee on different expenditures regarding this. Is that fair to say? Okay.
Yes, that is very fair.
Okay, thank you.
So as, to highlight that point, Board Member Wong, or Vice President Wong, I'm sorry. A lot of the expenditures that were incurred in the first rounds were more emergency purchases that happened in the spring. So those did not come forward as approval items outside of the technology devices that we purchased. I would anticipate projects that we're doing with this additional funding would all be coming to committee because we will have some time to implement those types of strategies. So, in the forecasting, because we are looking at what is going to happen and talking, you've heard me talk a lot about a budget work group, wanted to kind of share with the group what we're using for our forecasting tools. So we have Baird forecasting model, which, as you're aware, possibly, I think all the members are aware at this point, that we use Baird for our debt services and our investments. So they have a projection model that allows us to go in and create up to 6 and 8 different proposals, and you could really, copy it out even further. That lets us do some preliminary looking as if we saw enrollment drop by 300 kids, if we saw enrollment gain by 100 kids, what if it stayed neutral? It allows us start to put hypotheses out there of what can happen with the parental choice and the open enrollment. What impact if we change those dynamics? What is that going to impact our revenue? It also allows us to look at staffing, insurance costs, and inflation. So if we're looking at insurance costs need to go up 2%, what impact does that have on our budget? And if we were to separate those costs into employee share and district share, what those would happen. It also has modules that lets us look at capital projects and investments looking forward in our Fund 46 as well. So it is a very robust tool that we are really going to be digging in with the budget work group. I have a lot of interest from administrators to be part of that budget work group. My anticipation was that we would meet in January. Because I have not received much feedback at all from any of the other employment groups, I am going to send out another reminder, and I'm asking anyone who's listening or participating in this, from parents and community, as well as these employee groups, to please reach out to Jennifer Miller. I would really like to have a diverse group of people with different ideas and different perspectives. Budget is something that people are not familiar as much with, but really have an opinion on it. And I want people on this work group that will share those opinions and be open to having discussions, because we are facing, as a nation, a crisis in funding for education. And, it's hard to say that on the backside of saying, hey, we might get $8.4 million in this relief fund. But we as a district need to be looking strategically at how we are utilizing our resources, what our initiatives are going to be, and how we achieve those initiatives. And I think we've gone along for a very long time keeping the status quo and just continuing with trying the same old things or starting a new initiative and not feeling it through. I do really hope that this work group that I have come together will be a year-long kind of work group. We won't meet as often necessarily as the budget formulates and gets adopted, but at that point I want to turn it around and say, okay, we've done this part, we got this year, what are our plans for the next year? What are we going to start doing? I want it to be a reoccurring conversation, but really have that engagement. I can sit in a room or at my desk and do budget all day long. And me trying to explain it and how we're doing, I don't feel like people have the voice that they are asking to have. So if anyone knows people that would like to, I would highly encourage them reaching out to Ms. Miller so that we can get you on that group. And I will be setting a schedule regardless for a February meeting.
How many are you looking for to be on this work group?
Ideally, I would like to have between, I would say 20 is my max. the administrators I have volunteering, it's going to have to be limited because I could fill the whole committee with just administration, and I don't think that necessarily helps us outside. But I have plenty of openings for any of these employee groups or the community that would want to. I just want an equal representation of all stakeholders in the group.
Are we doing any marketing for this work group at all, whether it's a PA announcement in the news or if it's even on our website?
It has not. It was kind of conveyed out through our building principals at this point, saying, hey, if you know people in your building that would want to be part of this, or a parent or community member, try to reach out to them, see if they're interested. I am going to kind of send this out to another set of individuals and share it on our finance page under the budget. And, I could work with Monica. She's got a ton of things on her plate, but maybe if I draft something, I can send it out as a communication through Blackboard that she doesn't have to manage that side. In seeing the response that we've gotten, it does need to go out to a broader audience. There's a lot of things on the communication front that it's hard to pull that time away right now from her.
And I understand that. I think that I think we ought to be reaching out to our community partners. I think a lot of times we don't utilize our networks as well as we should. And that's probably a network that we can branch out to literally hundreds of people. And while budget is not the most exciting thing for many people, I think that there's probably maybe a good handful of people in the community that would love to be involved in that and could learn a lot and could provide valuable input.
Yep. And my thought is, after this meeting and talking about it, is I'm actually going to design a flyer of sort to just kind of say what the purpose is. And I can, share that with others to kind of help get the word out that this is what we're looking for.
I would encourage to make sure when you do something like that as marketing it, to clearly outline the time commitment, because obviously you want to be respectful of people's time.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, so I guess we've been asking all the questions. Are there additional questions? It's really hard at this early stage to give you all those projections as far as what the state funding is. We're going to be in a biennial budget, so trying to figure out what the state is going to do, what the feds are going to do. It is really preliminary at this point to make those projections, but those are the hypotheses I'm putting into that model and start looking at, and want to hear the budget work group's points on what is the priority that they identify, as well as meeting with the administrative team here in the district of what is the priorities and initiatives that we're going to move forward with, and how are we going to subsidize those in that process as well.
Ms. Armstrong, do you think it would be possible for you to and I don't think that we need detailed analysis on a regular basis, but even if monthly, if we just have some feedback as far as what we've done with this committee, this work group, and what we're doing with the budget, just to keep us on task. This is an extremely important issue, and it's one that can really move the needle in a very positive or an extremely negative direction. So I think that keeping this committee abreast of what's going on, and as well, the other question I had was, is this information going to be provided or presented to the full board?
At this point, I do not believe it's scheduled to be presented to the whole board, but I am going to post it on the board docs, and I can include it in the superintendent's weekly update to the board as well.
Yes, when building out the calendar for the year, we wanted to have a placeholder for the beginnings of our budget planning process, which typically happens around about this time of the year. And as Ms. Armstrong said, this is extremely early. We don't even have firm numbers at the state level around the biennium budget. Normally, at least every other year, we're fortunate enough to know where the state budget is at, but when it's a biennium budget planning year, depending on where the state is at, we may or may not have a clear picture when it comes to both the general aid and the categorical aid that comes to districts. And for us, as part of our financial makeup, because we are such a heavily aided district and so much of our overall budget comes from the state, that puts us in a precarious position only so far as we don't have a clear picture as to that state aid coming to us. So Ms. Armstrong did a great job, as well as Ms. LaPointe, on telling us where we are and the factors that go into our future planning budget. We do know, because of the pandemic, we do have some funds that will help to offset some of the purchases that we have going forward. And fortunately, the government has provided us some good, clear guidance in that they've given us a lot of flexibility in how we address those, knowing that these are one-time costs. So I think the feedback, once the work groups get up and running, will provide some good talking points as to what are the issues that are most top of mind from the working groups, which provides us as a planning team good vision in terms of what are the things we need to bring to the board for the board to tackle, and some issues and decisions we want the board to weigh in on. But it also provides us with a starting point for where we are in the process, so that when we come in September, it's not like we just start at that point planning the budget. The budget actually starts right now, and it will go through ebbs and flows a lot over these next 6 months.
And I just want to reiterate at this point the reminder that, as you know, John had mentioned, we would be doing device refreshes regardless. But in the situation where we had approved a deficit budget and we are able to get technology in everyone's hands and provide coverage of insurance and not put any of those burdens on our families or our staff members, I think that is a real testimony to the commitment that the district and the board have to our staff and our students. And I am very happy with decisions that were made to enable us to do that refresh and not necessarily have to worry about how to put a $700,000 lease payment in our budget every year when we are really looking at reduced funding each year. So I do thank the board for that, and I just ask that people remember that side of that component.
The question I had regarding the updates would be, maybe it'd be better served if it was in the superintendent, your weekly updates, and providing specifically about the work group. I guess it's not so much the budget, because we know that's not going to be definitive for quite some time. But if there's things that we can do, or we can at least help with getting the word out that we would like to have citizens, other people within the community to provide a diverse group of people to understand what the budget process is, I think would be very helpful.
Yep. I have no problem supplying that, and that would allow some feedback as well on if we're moving right directions, or if community isn't able to participate. If everyone's knowledgeable of it, we can get some of that feedback from other parties.
Any other questions or comments from committee members? Yeah, the budget's very important. It is a very complicated issue, and I think, I've kind of researched it over a period of the last decade from time to time, and it still is very confusing. There is so many parts involved, and I think for the average person to try to understand what really goes into the budget, it's very difficult. And I think that being a very heavily aided community, it does put us in a situation whereby, you never know if the rug might be pulled out from underneath you, and knowing that that could have drastic impacts upon our school district as a whole. So I don't think that enough people understand and can appreciate the budget issues that we face from year to year. Fortunately, it's played in our favor for many years because of the state aid that we do receive. But I think we always kind of keep it in the back of our mind that we know that can all change very quickly. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's very informative, and I think that we look forward to hearing more about the work group and about the budget.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on, we have item 3A, and actually the budget, that was just for information. So 3A is going to be the kitchen equipment RFP.
Okay, good evening. This is Dawn Smith, and I am the food service director. And I want to just give you, there's one change in the presentation. Jared Haxton will not be presenting with me. It will be Sean Winters on Jared's behalf. I am looking for approval to the full board for the RFP for the kitchen equipment. These items were approved purchases by the DPI in June 2020 with our excess fund balance. And this is funding that's already been allocated for that. Let me see if I can, I was trying to put the,
Dawn, I can present it for you.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No
So the items that what we're looking at, each school has at least one item. We're looking at 4 ice makers for all the intermediate schools, 6 hand washing sinks to be placed in various areas during the lunch period. These are additional hand washing systems. There is one currently in each servery, but we would add them either to hallways where they're going to be eating in the classroom, or we would add them in the gymnasium where they would need to perhaps wash their hands after they're done eating. And then the Turbo Chef would be for the high school. A Turbo Chef can cook a pizza in 2 minutes. And so we have one currently, and that's an addition. And it's a wonderful, wonderful piece of equipment. The 3 reach-in freezers, they're actually replacements. We did have to use the 3 that were at the high school for COVID purposes. We had to keep some things frozen, and so we had to move out the 3 that were really, we would have replaced them anyway, but because they were not as efficient, we chose to use those 3. So we're replacing those 3 that we took out of the production kitchen. So, Sean, is there anything that you want to add?
Just that as an RFP, I was very happy to see the 7 responses. Typically, we'll see 3 or 4, but to have 7 responses like this really gave us a good picture of what our money can buy. Very happy with the responses, and especially from a lot of really good companies. So, and these will actually help, especially like the ice machines. These will help out round out our kitchens, and just a very worthwhile project. So,
any questions from committee members? I do have one question regarding the equipment itself. Is it safe to say, I'm guessing I see that this involves installation and freight. Does all this equipment come with any type of warranties at all? I would assume there would probably be standard warranties.
Yes, they all do.
Any idea how long they are, and is it just pretty standard across the board?
Yeah, it's usually 1 year. Actually, I think the Turbo Chef was 2 years.
But I do want to say on that part of it, though, that every piece of equipment that we spec'd out for a reason. And it is because of our past experience with, everything from the ice machine to the sinks, the sinks we actually have. So it was very meticulously picked out, these certain models. And so very good experience with all these.
And once again, this is all out of Fund 50, correct?
Correct.
Could you briefly, Ms. Smith or Mr. Winters, describe Fund 50? I think that, everyone hears these different funds, and I think it's important to understand for the public, if they don't know what it is, where this money is coming from. It's coming from different pockets that have specific goals, I believe, correct?
Yes. So Fund 50 is the reimbursement that the school district gets from the federal government. They can pay for food service equipment and, of course, our management company. It can pay for any sort of expenditures that are only in regard to food and equipment to provide, tables and, the hand washing sinks. And we can do some capital equipment. Our fund balance is typically in excess, and usually around April, we get a letter from the Department of Public Instruction, and they tell us how much that we should spend down. We normally would have, I think that we had about $900,000 to spend this year. So we're not quite sure how we're going to end up for next year, but what it does is it gives us the opportunity to do bigger projects. And so if we were to go to the DPI and let them know that, $100,000 is going to be spent for next year doing another project, they would allow us to roll that over as long as we had a purpose for it in the food service. In any type of food service equipment or, like I said, capital.
So these are funds that come from the federal government that are earmarked specifically for food service, anything in that area. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is where the food truck money came from as well.
Correct.
And these dollars this is over and above the general budget dollars that we have. For all the other expenditures. So I think it's important that the public understands that we get these dollars and they're to be used hopefully in wise fashion to continue to improve all the equipment throughout the entire district, which is, when you really think about it, is quite a few buildings.
Correct.
Yes, and these are truly based on, the district is a CEP district, which gives us the opportunity to provide meals to all of our students. And because of our healthy fund balance and needing to spend down that money, it's not supposed to be saved. It needs to be put into use for the benefit of our students. We had the wonderful opportunity to do the food trucks and show that option. And I'm excited as they continue to be finished up and their impending spring delivery to the district, that will provide some unique opportunities. The Fund 50 has also allowed us to continue through our summer feeding program that allows us to feed all of the community since the impact of COVID in March of 2020. Those are still the same dollars that we continue to receive to feed everyone under the age of 18. Whether there are students or not. This is truly that money that we get reimbursed for doing what we are entitled to in the district because of our demographics and because of the community we serve. So we have fortunately or unfortunately been very good stewards of this money, and that is why we need to do these projects and not always be shy in making sure that we spend these funds appropriately, improving kitchens, improving the food service. This is also the fund that paid for the bento boxes for us to be able to individually serve meals to our students when they come back to face-to-face instruction. So we have utilized a lot of our fund balance, hopefully, this year in being able to do COVID-related and not necessarily having to use those COVID funds specifically for it. It has given us the opportunity to use those funds in purchases that will offset our district budget and focus our excess balance of Fund 50 into those options that are also needed due to COVID and not just solely because of COVID.
You had mentioned we're a CEP district. Can you describe that acronym?
I'm sorry, what?
You had mentioned at the very beginning you used an acronym, and I didn't. You said...
CEP. That is Community Eligibility Provision,
okay,
which based on the economic demographics of our region, we have over a 75% population that would qualify for free or reduced meal service, and that enables the district to claim a CEP under that provision that allows us to feed breakfast and lunch to all of our students at no cost to the student or the family.
Thank you. Okay, any questions, additional questions from committee members?
I had a question. In regards to the equipment that is being purchased, do we have how long would we have to replace any of these things, any of the equipment that we're purchasing? Is there an estimated time as far as replacements go?
Well, typically what we would do is we would replace something once it becomes where it's not energy efficient anymore. Like the freezers, we were going to replace those anyway. We use them for COVID, and we've used them for distribution of meals that we have now. The ice machines, they have like a 10-year on them. They're pretty good as long as you maintain them and you make sure that the filters are cleaned. The hand washing systems are portable, so that again is something that we don't know if we would need to replace those. Those we are purchasing for COVID. The Turbo Chef also has a very long life. So typically our ovens, we switch them out between 10 and 12 years. We've had equipment for 25 years. So usually it's an energy efficient issue. If they start needing more repairs, then it's not worth it for us to repair them anymore, and then we need to replace them.
And I would also like to just to tag on that anything that's water related when it comes to kitchen equipment typically has a shorter lifespan if the water is considered aggressive, hard. All of our buildings as of during our holiday break are now totally 100% soft water. So that is it's not only just for the equipment in the rest of our buildings, our boilers and such, but it's also for all of our restaurant, or I should say all of our kitchen equipment. So there is a lot of stuff going on behind the curtain that no one really knows about. And just one more thing I'd like to say is that we have, as part of my presentation next week for my annual capital improvement plan, that is a 10-year plan. Ms. Smith and I have worked hand in hand to also include a Fund 50 10-year capital improvement plan, which allows the committee, the community, and the board to kind of see where our vision is. And I think that, again, more information, the better.
Thank you for sharing that.
Okay, hearing all of that, can we entertain a motion?
I would like to make a motion to for the approval to purchase the kitchen equipment from Fund 50 that was presented.
Do you want to add a dollar amount onto that?
Absolutely. Not to exceed $50,000.
Okay. Do we have a second?
And you can amend it if you consider that proper.
We can.
Yeah. Do we have a second on that?
Yep, second.
Okay, so we have a motion to recommend to the full board approval of the purchase of the kitchen equipment as presented from, what's the name of that company? Kesnick, in the amount of no greater than $50,000. Any more comments or questions from committee members? Hearing none, all those that signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much for the
Thank you all very
presentation and all the explanations. It's very helpful. I think not only it's a fresher for board members, but hopefully community people appreciate it as well because it can be complicated at times. Okay, next we're moving on to the next meeting date, which will be March 2nd. So we'll hit March 2nd will be the meeting. 5:15 is generally the time that we shoot for. And I think that is all we have for this evening. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Thank you all, and we'll see you next month.
Have a good evening.